Welcome to episode 139 of the Muck Podcast, a member of the Odd Pods Media Network. Listen in as we discuss the dark and sometimes weird true stories in American politics. I'm Tina Jaramillo.
And I'm Hillary Doherty.
Hillary.
We're back on Zoom again because Zoom loves us so much. Look, I get to look at you like this. It's wonderful.
I wish that I could sing, but I can't.
Oh, Tina, what happened? What happened, Tina? What happened?
Well, what happened was I got the Rona. The Rona got me. Rona.
Isn't it funny how we can laugh about coronavirus now? I mean, my God.
I mean, it's no
going around.
Joke.
You are one of 3 people I know this week that have it. It's fucking insane. It's insane.
And it's no, and until you really have coronavirus, and some people really, get by with nothing.
Lucky.
But I am not one of those people.
I wasn't either. I don't know if it's because you and I have both been boosted recently, I believe, and I think I got the strain of like whatever that shit didn't cover, because and you had different symptoms than I have. Like you have some of the same but some different. So I don't know.
I'm still thankful for my vax and booster though, because like, if I didn't have that, like what? Because it's like the flu, like when you get your stupid flu shot, you end up with the strain sometimes that the flu shot isn't covering that year,
right.
But it still gives you some protection.
But like literally 2 days ago, Tina was leaving me voice messages and it was like, I was like, ET phone home, honey, we're in trouble. We are in trouble.
I mean,
and then yesterday you sounded good. And I I was like, all right, I think we can do
I feel like I still sound a little, nasally,
maybe, but your throat is sounding, everything sounds so much better. Oh God, there goes coronavirus.
Oh my God.
The Rona.
Rona.
Here we are. So this week, Saturday today, we planned on recording 2 episodes. So recording 2 on Zoom, which everybody listening knows I fucking hate it. I hate recording on Zoom because it's not the microphone quality that I love to edit. Like the whole time I'm going to edit this, I'm going to be like, oh God. But
I know
it sounded pretty good last time when I had coronavirus. So I think that it will be okay.
It's going to be fine. And I think, it is what it is. We'll,
make it work. We're
going to make it work. Listen, we're putting out content in the time of Rona again. And that's what we're trying to do.
We're here. So. We're sacrificing everything for you motherfuckers. So I got a long list and I was trying to save some stuff for next week's. We'll record in a few minutes, but
I got one thing, like political thing that I'm just was on my list, and that is the environmental water crisis.
Oh, that was
happening.
On my for next.
Is that
the
from Mississippi?
But go ahead, let's talk about it. It's crazy.
Oh my God. Well, the fact that people can't cook, they can't clean, they can't
toilets.
Take baths.
Yeah.
Like the water is brown coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, and people want to say like, there's no such thing as climate change. There's no such thing as these issues. And here we are in a Southern run Republican state with leaders that don't believe in this garbage. And these Jackson residents, like, they had to tell them you have to shower with your mouth closed.
Yeah.
So you don't get dysentery.
Well,
right. Or whatever other thing that you can get. Like what are these people supposed to do?
Yeah. And also it reminds me of what? This is not the first time this has happened now, right? Flint, Michigan. Since 2014, we are approaching a 10-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Where they still do not have clean drinking water. They still have a water problem there. For almost 10 years. But the same thing, I remember watching a 2020 or one of those news programs where they go to Flint, Michigan, and this woman was like, you have to take a shower with your mouth closed because here's what happens. And she showed pictures. Her skin was just like covered in these fucking gross, like some shit that had whatever, when it got into her mouth, it caused like this disgusting skin rash or something. Well, this is a problem.
Yeah.
This is what happens when
and the flooding, and
they try to kick the can down the road, kick the can down the road,
right.
kick the can down the road of like,
because they don't care about
yeah,
the future.
We don't need to replace the pipes. We don't look at we experience this here in our own Broward County with Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, where a reckoning is going to come.
Yeah, the sewers were breaking, the sewer pipes were breaking, and shit was flowing up into those old neighborhoods, which were the rich areas.
Yeah,
just up to people's doorsteps with
I remember that
sewage coming up to the doorstep. Because every commission year after year was like, this costs too much money. It reminds me of what Lindsay Pollard said to us on the Little Muff that came out on last Friday, that like what Nancy Mateer does. We can either pay this much to fix this, to invest in environmental issues now, or we're going to have to pay $1 billion down the road, right? Like, which one do you want to do?
Or we can't live here.
Or we can't live. You know, you're waiting for a disaster to happen to fix it. It's going to be too late at that point. So it's a real shame. It's a shame.
Yeah. I mean, I was out, so I wasn't paying, not that I wasn't paying attention, but I wasn't paying attention. I was sleeping for days. So, but that, the whole Mississippi thing was just, and it impacts, you know, Black and brown communities. Always. Again.
It's awful. It's awful. And a lot of people are going to get sick from this.
Yeah. And die. And
it's really fucked up.
It's awful. It's awful.
They don't put people first. And that's what happens when
you don't put people first. And people living in Mississippi have to, again, think about who you're voting for. Like someone's screaming about abortion. Meanwhile, babies and children are bathing in dirty water. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about a couple of things that really made me crazy this week. The first one was one of the people that DeSantis put on the school board has domestic abuse like background. And so it came out this week that I'm going to find his name really quick because I didn't write it down for some reason. This came out and there's like the girls got Ryan Relter, the writer, R-E-I-T-E-R. I don't know how to pronounce that, writer, that he had a past with domestic violence and no experience whatsoever in education, right?
Yeah, that's the best.
It was all of like, he used to be the legislative aide for our good friend Chip Lamarca. And then he was like just placed on boards and different things. That's like all that he's done. And now they place him on the school board and this thing comes out about him. And do you think DeSantis is going to come in and
pull him from the board?
Yeah, no, of course not. The other thing I found very interesting is that at a press conference this week, I think this is an example of how fucked up our political system is that at a press conference this week, right at the end, Charlie Crist picked his running mate. Did you see this? Yeah. Okay. So she, I'm going to look up her name really quick, but she works she was the charge of the Miami-Dade school union, the public school, the teachers union. Yeah. And I guess years ago, there was a man who was a teacher and he was part of the union and he had children were accusing him of assault and abuse and like sexual assault and abuse. And she wasn't on the union then, but she became the president right after they did the investigation, but she knew him. For 10 years, he had these accusations and the union would look into it and nothing would happen. And finally, the family services, whatever that is, the family
CPS
would look into it and nothing would ever come of it. And every year, like another kid would be coming out saying something. So finally the teachers union looks into it. They're like, oh shit, like there's all kinds of shit. They throw him out. He gets arrested. He goes to jail. And DeSantis says at the end of the press conference that she was a part of covering up this guy and his abuse. And then like walks away from the microphone and all the reporters are like, what, right? Like, her name's Carla Hernandez Matz. And
wait, but it's not true.
No, I mean, listen, she became president. Like he was convicted in 2015. I think she became president in 2016, something like that. Like it was a year later, something like that. So So she wasn't a part of it, but she was in the union, but she was also part of the union when he was being investigated. So I don't know. So he says,
but part of the union, I mean, I'm a union member, you know what I mean? Like, was she just a member because she was a paying union
Well, she
member?
then became president, so maybe she was maybe she's a higher up in the union. But she, so he says this thing, he drops this bomb and he walks away. So all the reporters are trying to ask him questions and he doesn't, he he loves the soundbite, right? So they start looking into it and this is what they find is that she was part of this. So then the reporter, not part of it, but you know what I mean? She was there when this was happening. Yeah. Which, by the way, a lot of things happen with teachers who get accused of things but this guy was guilty, granted. Yeah. But the Charlie Crist, the response from the Crist campaign when they asked them about it was, this is rich coming from a governor who's one of his best friends is Matt Gaetz. And I was like, okay, good point. But also like, are we comparing who's closer to pedophiles? Like, what are we doing? What the fuck is going on in Florida? Like, this is the response that is so insane to me. It's so insane. Wow. I know. What a story, by the way. What a story. And oh my God. Also goes to show you how far the DeSantis campaign is going into looking into all of these people. Like there's no such thing as squeaky clean, but like if that's the closest they're going to get to dirt on her, then they really can't find anything, right? I mean, this is like, she's an arm's length away from an investigation. It's not like it was her or her husband or something like that, you know? So it's very strange. He's something else. This DeSantis. My favorite thing that I saw, and I don't remember if it was in my COVID haze, but people making fun of his arms, where people are like, "What's wrong with DeSantis?" Because he keeps them straight like this, and like they're just and it was all these pictures of DeSantis like holding his arms weird, and it made me laugh. And I was like, he's like this inhuman. I think he's got like a Barbie body. You know how you could like pose them? Like that's how he is. He's very much like the arms are just like he's just like very much like he's such a fucking weirdo. He's such a weirdo. Also, it's kind of funny. I thought we should bring this up too. Is that the press conference he had in Broward County, which we talked about on the podcast, where our good friend, the Vienna sausage finger, Chip Lamarck, is right next to him, like this, his little arms like this. It's two of them. That has come out that all 20 of the people that were arrested that he references as like voter fraud were sent fucking cards, voter registration cards from the Secretary of State. Like those things go through the voter. Yep. So it's like entrapment. You know, they don't even, that's like half the story. It's like, you sent them this. If you send me a card, I'm like, oh, I get to go vote. Like, why would anybody think that they weren't allowed to go vote? Yes. That's on the state. It's on the state. And then that means it's under the helm of our great leader. Yeah. So all these people, these 20 people were arrested for something that they were under the impression that they were allowed to do because you sent that to them. It's like sending somebody a driver's license and being like, oh, I can drive. You can't drive. Yeah. It's stupid. It's stupid. I heard that and I was like, it's ridiculous. This is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It is. Anyway, so we had a little muck that came out on Friday, and I got to tell you, editing it, I was like so happy. I was so happy editing this podcast. It was so good. Lindsay is so wonderful. I'm sorry that we didn't have her on before, like earlier. You know, but I mean, what a brilliant political strategist, you know? Yeah, absolutely. I loved all her answers. Even like, I know Broward County is lucky. It really is. But I was editing out every time we'd ask her a question, there was like a good 10-second pause, right? Because she's very thought out and she's like, all right, there's this pause. And I had to edit those out when you're editing the audio. Right. But at the same time, I was like, she really is like, okay, let's see the best way I can answer this question. Yeah. She's just, she's really brilliant. And I loved it. Yeah. I mean, and I loved her story. I loved how she got into politics. Like, I love all of it. I love all of it. I know. So incredible. That's all I've got for this week. Okay, me too. I mean, I was sleeping, so yeah. I was sleeping the week away. Okay. Because yes, you're first. I'm first. I want to tell you that I found this guy because of another guy. So this guy came up on the news and I was like, oh, I looked up his name and I'm like, oh, this is great. This is perfect for the muck. I'm going to cover this guy. And as I was reading stories about him, I was like, wait a minute, what? And I opened this other door and I was like, who's this guy? So I'm like, I'm going to cover this one first. And then on the next episode, we're going to record shortly. I'm going to cover the other guy. But today I'm covering Tennessee House Rep David Byrd.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, it sounds very similar to David Byrne, who's not mucky.
No.
But you said Byrd with a D.
Byrd. Yeah. So he's
right.
a little bit of background, and then we're going to get into it because there's so much fun. But my story, I would say short and sweet, but it's full. This is, to me, when I was doing it, I was like, this is muck. If I were to point to like a muck story, this is fucking muck. It's so fucking good. Okay. David Byrd was born on September 8th, 1957. He earned his, which is a wonderful day for a birthday.
Hi.
He earned his bachelor's degree from Freed-Hardeman University and his master from Tennessee State University. He worked for more than 2 decades at Wayne County High School in Waynesboro, Tennessee. He was a teacher and a basketball coach during that time and the school's principal for 8 years.
Wow.
So in 1990, he was elected to the Wayne County Commission, and he served until 1994. And then 10 years later, he runs for the Tennessee House District 71 in 2014. He beat his Republican challenger in the primary and went on to win the general unopposed. And then he was reelected 2 years later in 2016. So he's running for reelection in 2018. So that's in November, right? But in March of 2018, these abuse allegations come up. So 3 women accused Byrd of sexually abusing them while they were underage and members of the high school basketball team where he coached. Yeah. And the creepiest thing about this is that when he was running, like I saw some of his campaign signs and it said David Coach Byrd. Like that's how people knew him in the community, as this longtime coach and teacher at the high school.
That is
fucking nasty, dude. Not good.
No.
So we're going to get into this trigger warning. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what they're accusing him of and their memories of what had happened. Each of the 3 women detailed instances of Byrd touching and kissing them and making unwanted advances in 1988. According to the Mother Jones article that you can find in our notes, they spoke with one of the accusers, Christy Rice, and she said, quote, "Honestly, I don't remember the very first time he touched me. It was more that he talked about it. He wanted to see me naked. He told me he spent more hours with me in a day than he did his wife. That when he had sex with her, he was thinking about me."
No, he said this to a child.
Like 15 years old.
Wow.
She remembered Byrd leaving her what he calls IOUs that insinuated she owed him a sexual quid pro quo. The first came in the morning after a late night basketball game that prevented her from being prepared for a surprise biology test the next morning. Byrd, who was also her biology teacher, told her she didn't have to worry when she fretted to him about her potential score. When the test landed on her desk, she said the answers were already filled in. Shortly thereafter, she received the first IOU signed with his initials, DAB. For weeks, he teased her, saying she owed him, but he hadn't decided precisely what her payment would be. Eventually, he told her Rice was to disrobe in the girls' locker room after her teammates had gone home so he could accidentally walk in on her.
Wow.
The second, Rice said he told her, was for her to unbutton her shirt and lean in front of him, pressing her breasts together.
Oh my God.
She's a little girl, dude. The third was inscribed as a note in her yearbook. It's a fucking idiot. It reads, quote, "You are one of the hardest working players I have ever coached. You have finally got a personality that I think fits you to a T. Be good and work hard, and I'll bet you get that scholarship. Good luck," end quote. I mean, what are you doing?
I mean, teachers and students ask me to sign yearbooks, and you're like, have a great summer. It was so great having you as a student, But
and he signed it, and then he signed it coach. Above the inscription, the number 3 is written, underlined 3 times. Rice says he told her it was for sex. Like that's the third time.
That was the code. So that's the code.
Another woman that came forward was Robbie Kane. Her account was similar to Christy Rice. Kane told WSMV, which is one of these news stations there that did these investigations, about an incident during the summer of 1986 when she was alone in a hotel swimming pool while on a trip with the basketball team, and Byrd tried to touch her genital area and encouraged her to touch his. But
Oh,
Kane tells Mother Jones the abuse she experienced goes far beyond what was published in that report. She recalls Byrd asking her for her ABC gum. Remember that acronym for already been chewed? ABC. Remember
oh
that?
no.
Oh
I
my God. I
no.
remember that when I was kid. In other words,
I didn't know.
he wanted her to transfer the gum from her mouth into his mouth.
I remember that being a thing, but I don't remember
Yes.
it being called ABC.
ABC. Later, he inscribed in her senior yearbook, quote, to the girl who could not dribble and chew gum at the same time, end quote. Years later, long after she had graduated, she ran into him at a restaurant and he repeated the phrase to her, the girl who could not dribble and chew gum at the same time. So he's like,
Ew.
remembering
He's
them.
reliving. Ew.
He's probably, you know what I'm saying?
Ew.
Go to YouTube for that. She adds that as a player, she struggled with pain in her ankles. On occasions, when the pain was overwhelming, Byrd would carry her into the basement of the high school where he would instruct her to take off her pants and get into the hot tub. He told her to ease her ankle pain. Kane, in searing detail, also recalls that particular night reported by WSMV at the Sheraton Hotel in downtown Nashville as, quote, I'll never forget it in my life, end quote. The girls' basketball team was staying there and she went with her teammates for a swim in the pool. She says Byrd joined them.
Ew.
Like, what are you doing? Leave them alone. But
Ugh.
one by one, the other girls left the pool until it was just her alone with the coach. She said, quote, the next thing I know, he's got me over on the side of the pool and he's telling me he wants me to reach down and touch him between his legs because he wants me to feel how I make him feel. He kept telling me how it's throbbing. I was like, no, no, no. I just remember screaming no and getting out of that pool, end quote.
Oh my God.
There's another thing here that's just so bizarre to me. It's more about power and like trying to take advantage of these girls. Like he's obviously a major fucking creep, but also like as a creep, do you not understand that like she's a young girl who thinks other young boys are cute, right? Like she's attracted to other teenagers. She does not think
you old,
you're a grown
guy.
Man. You're like her dad's age. Like she doesn't want anything to fucking do with this.
Yeah, and at 15, like someone who's like 30 is super old. Like, you know what I mean? Like absolutely. They don't realize that it's not old, and it is old to them, and it should be old and gross to them.
Of course, this is not normal, right? So Byrd did not initially, when these charges or these accusations come out, he did not initially refute the allegations and apologize to one of the women, but later issued a statement denying the accusations and, quote, questioning the motives of his accusers. So gaslighting these women, like, why are you coming out all these years later? You know, whatever. But this was also 2018, the height of like Me Too started. Right. Remember? So like now it's like we're going to start talking about it.
In the 80s, like this shit still was, you know what I mean? Absolutely. Like you didn't talk about this stuff. I don't know if I told this story on the podcast before or not about a teacher in middle school. And he wasn't my teacher. He was a new young, you know, everyone thought he was cute, and I cannot remember his name for the life of me, and maybe it'll come back to me because he wasn't my teacher,
right?
But I remember in the morning a friend of mine was like, let's go see Mr. So-and-so, and he was drawing, he like was doodling, and he doodled this picture and put a necklace on like he was like drawing a picture of her. I don't remember. I mean, I was like in 7th grade. I was like 11 or 12. And then he talked about pearl necklace. Like, I'm going to give you a pearl necklace. And I didn't know. And she was like, and I didn't know what it meant. And then later she told me what that meant. And I was like, so grossed out. This was the science teacher. And then he came, I remember he came with us on our like, Disney trip.
Oh my God.
And like all the girls were sitting around him.
Of course.
And I thought that he was like weird, but like he knew what he was doing.
Of course.
And then now I wonder, is he still like teaching? Is he like, you know, 60? Maybe he retired to, like, how long did he teach? Did he stay in teaching? Like, where is this guy? And I don't even remember his name. So how many of those people are out there?
Yeah, a lot.
You know?
And I don't even know. I mean, it's like the same thing we've talked about before. Like, when politicians go in, they have this like, oh, we're going to be the good guy, you know, we're going to do good work, blah, blah, blah. And then they get corrupt. Like, I wonder if that's what happens like with dudes. Like you go in, like, I'm going to be a teacher, and then you're getting all of this attention. I wonder if but it's still from little girls. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
No, it's gross.
Yeah.
It's gross. They're children.
Totally. Yeah, it's fucking gross.
They're children.
Please.
I mean, when you, even on the high school level, like their kid, like they are so, like they are trying so hard to be grown, but they're like, when you look at them, you're like, oh, they're kids. They're, you know, but yeah, I often, every now and then thought about that moment, and I didn't know what to do. Again, I was 11 or 12, and who was I going to tell? Like, I didn't know.
That's why these movements are important.
I mean, as much as I didn't even know what that meant. Like I said, someone had to explain it to me, because she like told the story to someone else, and I was a very clueless child, because I did not know anything about that kind of stuff. And then I was like, oh, maybe you know, who knows, is she making it up that's even what that is? And then later on I was like, oh shit, no, that is what that means.
But that's why these movements are important, because it makes people more aware, and women feel more comfortable, or girls feel more comfortable talking about those things. That's why this is important. We have to stop this shit when it's happening, you know? But at that time, this is what women and girls lived with. This is what our world was. Nobody ever did that. We just went, well, there's another fucking creep in my life. Like, that's right.
And then think about the movies that were popular. Like, I recently watched you know, like Breakfast Club again, and you know, there's things in there that are you know, really inappropriate happening to the girls in there. And then like 16 Candles, you know, like, which was a favorite movie, and it's a rape that happens. And those things were accepted and shown, and so what did you know? My God.
So even though he, you know, started denying these things, one of his alleged victims recorded him telling her, quote, she called him. He said in the message, quote, "I can promise you one thing. I have been so sorry for that. I've lived with that, and you don't know how hard it was for me," end quote. He resisted calls to resign from influential Republicans, such as the Speaker at the time of the Tennessee House of Representatives, Beth Harwell, and he won his reelection in 2018. So 8 months later, he's reelected. Calls for his resignation and retirement continued into 2019 and 2020.
And he doesn't resign.
No, including an unsuccessful resolution by Democratic Rep. Gloria Johnson to expel Byrd from the House. 71 of his Republican colleagues voted to keep him in the House, to protect him.
Right. They're protecting the seat.
Yeah. Well,
that's all they're protecting.
It's a Republican.
They don't care.
He runs unopposed. It's a Republican seat. Just let somebody else go in. What's the fucking issue here? Okay, he's not doing any favors for your party, right? You know? But also remember, this is.
But they don't want to admit wrong.
But it's also Trump time, where it's like deny, right? It's not like a normal Republican era. It's like Trump era.
And you have Trump, who is accused of assaulting women,
and it's just deny, and it just goes to the side, and nobody gives a fuck. So one of his most vocal defenders was fellow House member and future Speaker of the House, Glenn Quesada, who I will be covering in our next episode. At the time of Byrd's reelection announcement, Quesada said in a written statement, quote, because he was the majority leader in the House at the time, he said, quote, "The David Byrd I know is not the David Byrd being described in these allegations. However, they are serious claims, and these women have a right to be heard. David Byrd also has the right for his side of the story," end quote.
Yeah. Well, guess what? People live double lives all the time.
3 women who were teenagers.
What
do they
have?
Similar stories.
And what do they have to gain?
And by the way, nothing. And this is 3 women out of God knows how many didn't come forward. Because if there's 3, there's 10. Okay. He's a fucking creep. So he did not join in. This guy Quesada, who was the majority leader, he didn't call for resignation or anything. But in August of 2019, Byrd promised his fellow lawmakers he would not see re-election in 2020 at the request of Governor Bill Lee, who is a Democrat. So the governor's like, please don't run again. Or maybe he was Republican. I thought it said Democrat, but that's all right. But of course, what happens in April 2020? He fucking files for re-election and says, fuck you, I'm going to run anyway.
God.
Byrd, he drew 2 challengers in the August 2020 primary, but he won re-election in November 2020 with 78% of the vote. And he's still fucking sitting there. He's still there. And I'm pretty sure, but I will double check it, he is running for re-election in 22. Like, he's still fucking
What is wrong with these voters? What is wrong with these voters?
Unbelievable. Even saying like,
because these voters have women in their lives.
Yeah.
78%.
But
it's
even
not just men voting.
But even saying like, I'll resign just to take the heat off of him. And then he's like, fuck you, I'm going to run anyway. Like, that's insane. That's insane.
And
that's
that people are going to vote for him anyway.
Yeah. And he won 78%. It wasn't even like it was a landslide, bitch. Like 70%.
That was more than the previous election.
Yeah.
At 71.
Oh, no. That was 71 people. His House members that voted to keep him.
Okay.
Here's this other, so he's still there. That's that scandal. Here's this other thing that is so fucking insane. You're going to die. And when you see the pictures of this, you're going to
wait, of this guy?
Yes. There's this other thing that happened that is fucking insane, which people knew him for also. But I think more outside of, this is how he was kind of known nationally for a time, is that in June 2020, he voted in support of Tennessee House Resolution 340, stating that, quote, the mainstream media has sensationalized the reporting of COVID-19 in the service of political agendas, end quote, right? So Tennessee House, they passed this whole fucking dumb thing where they're like, oh, the COVID's not a big deal, right? But yeah, in December 2020, he's hospitalized with COVID-19, right? So he gets COVID. But not only does he like get COVID, he gets it bad. Like he's one of those fucking ones that gets bad, right? So he had attended a caucus meeting with nearly 70 House Republicans on November 24th, and a week and a half later, before he was hospitalized with the virus. Like he had it, was out there, but he got it really bad. So he's hospitalized for 55 days on a ventilator. He required a liver transplant in June 21. His condition was so grave that his family had planned a funeral for him.
No.
When you see the picture of him when he comes back to the house to do his swearing in 2020, he's in a wheelchair. He can't walk. He's like his whole face is sucked in. He looks like half the person he was before.
Wow.
Yeah. But so then after he recovers from the disease, because, which was a miracle, he urged people to get vaccinated.
Oh.
It gets better. He said, quote, I understand the concerns of those who are hesitant to get the vaccine. To them, I would say COVID is real and it is very dangerous. It is a disease that wants to kill us. Please consider getting vaccinated, end quote. However, because this is the muck, bitch.
He adds.
However, on August 11th, 2021, he joined all members of the state House Republican caucus in signing a letter to Governor Bill Lee asking him to prohibit mask and vaccine mandates. What in the world? What in the world?
Because he's got no balls. He's got no balls. He can't stand up for what he believes in.
And also probably because they were supporting him when he was accused of assaulting girls.
Right.
So he's like, well, I got to go along with this.
Meanwhile, because of who he was, he probably got the medical treatment that he got. You know what I mean? If he was Joe Schmo, he probably wouldn't have survived.
Can you believe
But because he's a sitting elected official, we're going to put all our resources into this guy.
Yeah.
And then screw the public at the end.
Get vaccinated, get vaccinated, get vaccinated. Oh, fuck it. Don't worry about it. Bitch, you almost died. You almost died.
That's the most Republican thing.
Yeah.
That's it. It boggles the mind.
Yeah. It's the most perfect. He's still serving. That's the end of the story. But
I can't believe he's still sitting there. But you had COVID. Go relax.
When I do the Glenn Quesada, part of the thing that they found out about him, because he had a bunch of scandals, was that I'll tell you about it when you get to me next week.
My story.
But it was just so crazy when I was like, what is he doing over here? And then I had to go read this story, and I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, what a wild place.
Isn't this the most fun part of the muck? Is when you're doing one thing and then you're like, oh wait, I got to put this guy on my list now.
But Tennessee is Florida. Tennessee is Florida. It's Tallahassee.
A mess.
Yeah.
All right. So are you ready?
I am so ready. Let's do it.
All right. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of Paul Powell and the shoebox scandal.
Ooh. Okay.
Ooh. It's just a little kind of fun story. It's super short.
Just
because, I got the Rona. I got to do it Rona style.
I got the Rona. It's I'm putting that down as a possible title.
Okay.
It's funny.
All right. So prominent in Illinois politics since the 1930s, Paul Powell eventually became Illinois Secretary of State in 1964. But after his death in 1970, Powell's secrets are revealed.
Ooh,
So
I
yeah, this
love
was
this.
like, yeah, a fun little story. Like it doesn't, like nothing really happens to him because it's after he dies that everyone's like, what?
Oh,
So
shit.
our story takes place in Illinois and then a tiny part of it in Minnesota. So Democrat Paul Powell started off in politics as mayor of Vienna. He served 6 years on the school board. He was elected to the Illinois House of Reps in 1934. He served as Speaker of the Illinois House on 2 separate occasions from 1949 to 1951, and again from 1959 to 1963. And then in 1965, he becomes Secretary of State of Illinois. So he just moves up that political ladder. And according to a Time magazine article from the time, Powell was this folksy type of guy, and he would give, he was the guy that would give speeches that were full of anecdotes and stories. And he was basically described like the baby kissing politician at the county fair. Like he's that guy. Everybody loves him. And he had a way of getting everyone to like him and to support him and to give money. And, that was him. One friend from his childhood had this to say, Paul was just a big old country boy. He could shake you down and make you like him. And he had a tiny little scandal during his political reign that had to do with racehorses. And basically, a grand jury investigation ends up going nowhere. He doesn't get in trouble, but he was accused of buying stock in a harness racing company. And that's like the horse racing where like the little carts behind it or whatever. But he was also fighting for the corporation, like legislative level. So they're like, you're fighting for this to happen and pass, but you also own stock in the company, like doesn't look good. But basically nothing happens. And when it was over, he said, it wound up with the grand jurors wanting to know from me where they could buy racetrack stock. So he's like, nothing happened. Like, like he's kind of smug about it, whatever.
Yeah.
And the most famous quote attributed to Powell goes, quote, "There's one thing worse than a defeated politician, and that's a broke one." Ooh. And Powell, as we'll see, he didn't want to be either of those. So, I mean, he's like successful. And again, it's not till after his death that things start to surface. So according to Ron Grossman's article for the Chicago Tribune, after Powell dies, then Chicago Mayor Richard Daley stated that Powell would be, quote, recognized as a major figure in the history of the state, because again, he for so long. And the chairman of, even though Powell was a Democrat, the chairman of the Illinois Republican Party noted his lengthy tenure in office was evidence of the warmth people felt for him. And Grossman also reported that Harry Truman was an honorary pallbearer for him. So like,
holy cow,
he was like very well known.
Yeah.
All right. So he died in 1970. And when he died in Minnesota. So even though he's like this Chicago politician, he was there because he was being treated at the Mayo Clinic for some illness, and he ends up having a heart attack and dying.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And when John Rendleman, who is his friend and the executor of his will, goes to his hotel suite. So Powell had a hotel, like he lived in a hotel suite, like he had a hotel suite. That's kind of where he lived in Springfield, Illinois.
God, I'm dying.
He goes there after the funeral.
Yes.
And he finds what's described as, quote, a closet full of money. There were shoeboxes, briefcases, all sorts of containers that were filled with $100 bills, more. And it took 3 tellers over 4 hours to count, and it amounted to over $800,000.
Holy shit.
Imagine like you walk in, and Rendleman said at the time, quote, "I almost fainted when I got into the clothes closet in Powell's rooms at the St. Nick and found the money. It was in all denominations, but mostly in $100 bills, and there were some $1,000 bills." Like,
wow. Wow.
I would have been like, oh, I'm just going to clean this up.
Take a couple shoeboxes and dip. Oh my God.
The thing is, as a politician, Powell earned $30,000 a year.
Oh boy.
And when he died, according to that Time magazine article, he left an estate that was worth more than $2 million. So there was the $800,000 from the closet. They found another $50,000 in his office. Then he had stocks in like these 7 Illinois racetracks. And so this investigation starts because they're like, where's all this money from? Like, he doesn't make that much money.
Oh God, this is exciting. Yeah.
So Ron Grossman reported that that the Chicago Tribune editorialized at the time that the scandal, quote, even in death, Paul Powell retains the Midas touch. So it's like, wow, you know, because it was all over the place, like that this whole stash of money was found.
Wow.
So no one really ends up getting in trouble. Well, of course, like Powell can't get in trouble. He's dead. But when they start investigating, they realize like he's involved in bribes and
okay. I was going to say kickbacks. Yeah.
Contractors ends up going to jail for and like confessing to like making these deals with Powell.
Wow.
And for the bribe. So like he leaves like this sort of big mess behind. And there was a settlement with the state. So at the end, the state of Illinois, I think, gets over $200,000 of that money. The IRS gets like $1.7 million or something, because while they're trying to figure everything out, the money's like collecting interest, and it took years. So in the end, it was like close to $4 million.
Holy cow.
And so, and he didn't have family or anything. The aftermath, there were some fun quotes. Adlai Stevenson, who was the Democratic state treasurer, quipped, quote, his shoe boxes will be hard to fill. That's so stupid, but it was real. I was like, I like that.
It's good.
And then the other thing that was funny is they were asking politicians, like, where do you think this money came from? And one Democratic state auditor, Michael Howlett, said, he must have saved his money when he was young.
Calm down, son.
Yeah.
That's like, ridiculous. Okay. Let's not be ridiculous.
Please. So the attorneys got like $300,000. Rendelman, the guy who found it, and the executor got $200,000. And then the rest went to like maintain Powell's Vienna home as a museum. It just like, it went to different democratic like clubs and caucuses. So the other thing that was funny is cash wasn't all that was found. According to a New York Times article, they found 49 cases of whiskey, 14 transistor radios, 154 shirts, and 2 cases of canned creamed corn. Like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah, but like maybe people are paying him off in that way. Like, I don't have cash, but I give you 2 cases of creamed corn. Yeah. Like, fuck it, I love creamed corn. Let's go.
The whiskey, okay. But cases of whiskey, that's a lot of whiskey.
It is.
So the other thing that I found interesting is he had all of this money, but he was super cheap. Like, he was married, he had 2 wives, and both his wives died. Like, one wife died like in a tornado or some crazy thing.
What a way to
go. And another one, I forget how she died, but she didn't like, one of the wives did not like have nice things to say about him. And one of his maids one time like told the story about asking, she was like, hey, my church is having this thing, like, can you donate? And she says, he's like, sure. And he pulls out like a wad of cash and he peels off $1. And he's like, I can give you $1. And then he goes in the kitchen and he comes out with a fruitcake. And he's like, here, take this fruitcake, go enjoy it. And she's like, and wouldn't you know, there were 2 bites already taken out of the fruit. It's like, that was this guy. How gross.
Oh my God.
You know, what an ass.
Enjoy this fruitcake.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then like, imagine like you have all this money stashed and you just peel $1 off and like, and you're there with that money. It's so.
Also, does the church need someone to give them more money? Fuck off.
I know, but you know, here's your maid asking you.
No, he's a dick, obviously.
So that's the story. God. It's a little short and sweet, but
I loved it. Very good, Tina. Oh my God, this guy.
I know. I coughed through it, but I'll edit it out.
Please. Who cares? So excited. I'm so glad we were able to do this and that you're feeling up to doing it.
Yes.
Coronavirus can be the end of me. I
Oh
can't
my God.
stand it. I'm
Well,
over it.
hopefully we'll be done for a while.
I hope so.
Till the next
So
boosters.
your husband's the only one in your house who hasn't gotten the Rona, right?
No, well, I don't know if he had it because
right. This is the other part. Like the testing, you don't know, like who the fuck.
Yeah, because like my oldest was sick a couple days, then my husband was sick a couple days, my youngest was sick than me, but it really hit me. So I'm like, did they have it?
That's what it is too. It's like my kids, you know, because at the beginning of school, you know, it's always like my son, he's always coming back and like there's the runny nose. And I'm like, all right, well, I could test him, but he just had it in May. And you know what I mean? So I was like,
my kids had it
and
in May too.
So 2 days later, they're fine. Like they're both, but it's always the beginning of the school year. But now it's like we have this Kona to contend with like, is it Corona? Is it not? But I feel like it feels different than a regular sickness.
Yeah. It's just exhausting.
It wears you out. We were talking about that before we were recording, that I think that low grade fever just wears you out the whole time. Like it's just, and then I had a very, very bad cough, like the cough where I felt like I was going to choke to death. It was really bad.
Yeah. Oh God.
I know, but you know what? We'll get through it. And I really appreciate you recording too, so I can go to the Keys this weekend.
Oh my God. I'm so excited for you.
I haven't been down there in a long time, so I'm excited.
I haven't either. I used to love to go. I used to go down a lot, actually.
I've only been like twice, I think, but I love it.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Are you going all the way to Key West, or are you going to go to like...
Key West, and then I really want to see the sunset at Mallory Square because that's always fun too.
Yeah.
So try to get over there and see that, but it'll be fun.
Yes. And there's the Hemingway house, of course. The nerdy me, all the cats.
Oh yeah, love that. Love the cats. So good. So much fun. So many weirdos and locals that are weird.
Yeah, and I love going to. We used to go to some of the smaller keys a lot too.
Yeah,
and,
there's lots of beautiful.
Those are you know, if you don't want to do like the long drive all the way down to the keys, you can. There's always the smaller keys to go to, and listen to music. And,
it's the best. I already have my playlist. I found Spotify has been putting together some pretty amazing playlists, and there's one indie rock drive time, like this whole like 3 hours, and I was like, I'm ready. I'm so there for that. So I'm excited. It'll be fun. I think that's going to be amazing. Yeah. Aww. Fun times. All right. Well, I'll see you for the next. Yeah. I'm going to change my shirt so it looks like it's 2 separate episodes. Yeah. So well, I'm not, because I'm lazy and I am gross. You got the Rona. Yeah, I got the Rona. So my Rona shirt. I haven't heard somebody say Rona in so long that I'm dying. It's so good. Oh, all right. God. Well, I will see you in a few minutes, and we'll see everybody else next week. Bye. Bye.